What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and today we're going to be talking about a post-ban tier list. So this is OP10 post the ban of Ice Age, Gecko Moria, Jimbei, and Raigo, which creates a really interesting format because OP10 was notoriously dominated by Marshall D. Teach, with Dofi kind of fading out, and then OP11 dominated by Blue-Purple Luffy and Green-Purple Luffy. So none of those decks impacted, but it seems like they're just really responding to OP10, which was an interesting choice, I think, just across the board. And I think a lot of people felt very similar. I don't disagree with the list. I just find it really interesting because so far Bandai has only ever done one ban list like at a time. For Bandai as a company as a whole, the English TCG did do their own separate ban list 2 times, but since then we've got the global announcement of alignment on sets, which will be global release, which means that we should all fall under the same umbrella and all the companies should be aligned in all of their movements, which means we should never see our own ban list again. So super interesting in just their approach, but only time will tell. And if you're new to the channel, I'm Vampyr Gaming, fresh back from Japan, went to the Worlds as a spectator. But I make One Piece content, everyday One Piece content, and then, of course, competitive One Piece content to help you elevate your game. Absolutely free here on YouTube. Also, be sure to check out Will to Win Gaming. He's back on YouTube. Super excited to see him back. Yeah, a lot of you might not have heard of Will if you're new to the game, but he is like an OG One Piece legend. But yeah, let's go ahead, dive in. We're going to be talking about all these leaders and where I think that they hold up. We'll be having Tier 0, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. And we will just be yapping. So I hope you find this content of value. If you did, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It will help me out a lot. And thank you. All right, so first up we have Roanoa Zoro, which I think is one of the most talked about leaders for this set. So with Dofi gone, it creates a huge opportunity for a new aggro deck, which is like Roanoa Zoro, and it still is arguably the best red aggro deck, just because now we have ST21 Luffy right at the start of OP10, which Asia did not, so we actually got it sooner than they did. They got it like right before EB02, and we're about to have EB02 next month, which isn't far. So this is like a really short format because then Green-Purple Luffy is just going to dominate our format. But I'm going to put Zoro. Maybe we do this. Let's duplicate this, add a row below. And we're going to actually go tier 1.5. I think that's super fair, and I think this is actually where Zoro falls. It's like a tier 1.5 because he's really good into Blackbeard, and I think he's pretty good into Bonnie. And just has a really good matchup spread overall. And a lot of people talk about Zoro. Please do not play Zoro at Virginia Beach. I know everybody plays it. It does just insta-lose to Lucci, though, and Lucci isn't dead. Lucci isn't dead. People are still playing Lucci. Lucci just absolutely cooks this deck. Enel, too. This deck is terrible into Enel, so it has 2 really poor matchups of decks that are still kind of popular. We've got Red-Green Law, too. I think Red-Green... I'm going to take a spicy take. I think Red-Green Law is 1.5 as well. I think this is bottom of that, borderline tier 2. But Red-Green Law is still an incredibly strong deck and just has really good cards to swap out of. With, of course, the addition of the new Rush Luffy adding a lot more power and aggression to both of these red decks. And, of course, we have Red-Green Luffy. I think his leader's tier 3. I think it's just that Red-Green Law just does what he wants to do a little bit better because Restand Law and other cards. But this Luffy's a really fun idea overall. Then we have Odin. Sorry, Karar. Dofi. I'm still going to put Doflamingo at tier 1. Jimbei is a big hit, but I think a lot of people are missing and forgetting one thing. I've lost games against Dofi where they don't see Jimbei. The deck still is really good at value creation and establishing threats. It's just not as good. but it's still really good. And it's got Bounce Law, and Bounce Law goes really hard. Bounce Law hurts. Bounce Law causes divorces. That card is insane, and it didn't get hit. And every other card, like, it has so much value creation in the deck itself and value replacement that I still think that this deck is to be. It's not tier 0. It got knocked down a peg, which it needed, but the deck is absolutely still playable and still overall pretty good. Blurple Kaido, I'm sorry. It's table 500. I wish this leader was good, but I think his effect and both, like, the blue side of him are both pretty lackluster. Same with this Croc. King, also table 500. He's just like a reverse Zoro, but turns out that's just not as good as you would think. Whitebeard, I'll put Whitebeard at tier 2, because, like, if Pudding didn't exist, I think this deck really just finds its way back into our hearts. Mostly because Pudding, you do have to kind of worry about Perfume Fever as well, but essentially the only thing that holds Blackbeard or Whitebeard back is blue as a color, I think. Because this deck is just incredible. I think about it all the time, and I feel like he's still absolutely playable. Garp. I'm gonna put Garp in tier 2 as well. Because the removal of Ice Age hurts, but he still has the best minus mechanism in the game. Like, if there was a 2.5, I think he belongs in 2.5. I think Garp is, like, the bottom of tier 2, but we've seen people continually have success with Garp, and I think this leader overall is really good. Kinemon, I think Kinemon's tier 3. I don't think he's the worst, because you get that extra Dawn, but Smoker just does what he wants to do at this point a lot more effectively. Same thing kind of here with this Sanji. I think, you know, Smoker gets to play effect monsters and effectively do the same thing now. And then we've got Ivankov. I'm going to put Ivankov at 500, even though, you know what, I think Ivankov is tier 3. The blue suite of cards is incredibly powerful, and then you have all that EB support for her as well. Magellan, table 500. Once upon a time, he was a king, and now how the mighty has fallen. I just don't think there's enough support that's good. Same here with Z. I think Z has such an interesting ability, but I don't think there's a lot of synergy in terms of, like, just support for it. It's very expensive with a Dawn -3. Uncle Smokey. I'm going to put Uncle Smokey at tier 1.5. I think he's still really good. Tashigi is a heck of a card. And just their overall play style. I lost to a post-ban list Smoker playing OP11 blue, purple Luffy. I absolutely played the matchup wrong, but I still, at the end of the day, lost to a post-ban list Smoker. So I think there is some merit to be had here and some respect we have to give him, and that you might still see this at an event. Now, what you all been waiting for, the Red Ace. Where is he, tier 0? No, not really. But I do think Red Ace is tier 2. I think he's tier 2 because this leader is actually really... like, the Whitebeard suite of cards is pretty decent, and with the potential for Doflamingo and Lucci to be out of the image, like, 4-drop blocker is nowhere near as good when Doflamingo just bounces into your hand. And then when Lucci can just KO every card you play. But I think Ace has a form of aggression that a lot of people don't really recognize that exists within Flame Emperor, and then, of course, all of the rushers. I think it's completely underestimated inside this leader. So that's why I'm giving it tier 2. I think there is some potential here with Lucci out of the picture. Kuro of 1,000 Plans, table 500. Sorry, buddy. Usopp knocked you there. Arlong, I'm going to put Arlong tier 3. Arlong's actually decent. He continually gets new cards every set that makes him really good. Like, he gets support pretty much every set whenever a trigger card is printed. Blue Nami. Blue Nami, I'm going to go 1.5 because we're entering an aggro meta, so that's really bad for her. But, like, with things like Doflamingo potentially out of the photo, with blue being, of course, blue's weakness, I think it creates an interesting void there for Nami. But Nami just folds like a piece of pancake for Zoro. I think Zoro is going to be semi-prevalent. And then, of course, we get more rushers in Shanks overall, which I think Shanks is a really solid matchup into Nami as well. So it'll be really interesting to see how all of that really plays out. But I do think Nami is a little bit worse than she was, but also a little bit better in some ways. We're going to go ahead and put Iceberg at table 500, but I wish he was good. Same thing here with this Lucci. He caught a lot of strays in that ban list. And then table 500 for red or yellow, black, Linlin. I wish this card, I wish this leader was good so bad because it has such an interesting effect and so much potential with because yellow has really high KO cards, so you just need small black minus to do a lot. And I think this is one of my favorite leaders overall. And in my opinion, one of the most underrated. And then, of course, we have Katakuri. I'm going to put Katakuri at tier 2 because I think he's kind of back with a little bit slower meta in terms of like Blackbeard and things like that, minus the aggro. I think this leader is really well positioned, and I still think even into like aggro, like Zoro kind of had a rough matchup overall because Gadatsu's going to KO a lot of the bodies you establish for quite some time. So you have a decent amount of removal plus the addition of the new Nami to kind of answer these bodies and threats that you establish. So I think he's actually reasonably placed, especially if you're just lucky. Yellow's incredibly powerful. I'm also going to put red, blue, Vivi at tier 2. I think Vivi's just forever underrated, but also giving rush and just drawing cards is really, really good. And yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here. Like, you can play a Rayleigh, then give Rayleigh rush. Like, that's just insane. And then you get the draw card on top of it. So if you just draw a card every turn, like, every card you replace replaces its value, which goes a very long way. Green Purple Dofi, I'm going to go tier 3. Even though somebody played Green Purple Dofi at Worlds, which was fascinating, and I applaud them. It was quite a meta call. And I think they went 3-2, which on a world stage is commendable. Isho, Green Black. I'm going to go table 500. He lost Gecko and he lost Ice Age. All right, and then we have Rebecca. I think Rebecca's tier 2. Of course, Rebecca gets a lot more support this set with the release of Usopp. Actually, yeah, I think it's like 1.75 because she gets card support on both ends. You get the 7-drop Rebecca, and then you get a few other cards as well, including I want to say it's a 2K that gives you like Banish. And then another, like, a Banish 1-cost event for the 7-drop Luffy. So there's a lot of synergy there, along with, like, the addition of Kyros as well. So I think Rebecca's reasonably positioned. Queen goes to table 500. Queen's actually probably around, like tier 3, tier 2, somewhere in there. Queen's just weird in the fact that, you know, it's like Enel, but with blue. Because you get the heal every turn, and then you can do a double heal. Like, it's pretty much just the Nell, but with blue. Purple, Lakers, Croc. Lakers, Croc. I think Lakers, Croc is also tier 3. Like, the 8-drop is really good, but no cards that have been released have been anything truly amazing outside of just the evergreen yellow cards. Red, Black, Sabo. I think Red, Black, Sabo belongs in, like, tier 2, tier 3. I'm going to go tier 3. I think that this card is... I think it's just really decent leader ability. I'll go tier 2, actually. I think it's a really decent leader ability. Being able to protect your bodies goes a very long way. And then having the side of black for the removal, but then also the aggro of Rush is really interesting. Plus the addition of ST21 Luffy. For Bello Betty, I'll go Bello Betty 1.5. Bello Betty, again, if you're the luckiest guy in the room, you just win the day because if you just trigger 4 life, you just win. I don't see a world where you trigger 4 life bodies and you lose. Bello Betty has incredible aggro potential, especially in a top end meta, just to really smack face a lot, and it hurts. Green, blue, Rosinante, table 500. I wish there was another green, blue leader instead of just like Sanji Zoro, but something that had actual synergy with the colors. I think because you can do Sanji Zoro, which is an incredible combo, but none of them really make it work well. Sakazuki's banned. Yay. And then we've got Monkey D. Luffy, Purple Luffy. I'm gonna put Purple Luffy tier 1.5, but I think he's like the top end of tier 1.5, just because he's still slightly inconsistent. And I think that's just the only downfall of him. If you don't see Luffy Taro target and going first, he's okay. Enel. I think Enel's still 1.5 as well. Because the leader ability is just that good. Even without Kingdom Come or Raigo, I think this leader is still really powerful just because you're continually healing and just really hard to die. You just can't, the Starve model is just slightly less good, but it's still good. Uda, table 500. Sorry, Queen. Hody, got to put him there as well. Table 500, get him out of here. Perona, Cross is trying Perona. I think maybe tier 2. I think, again, a little worse without Gecko. But, wouldn't blow my mind if somebody got top 32, top 64 with this leader. Yamato. I'll also put tier 2. Any kind of aggro deck has a decent place here. Gecko Moria, I'll also put at tier 2. I think Gecko Moria is the top here. I think Gecko has a lot of potential. Again, also losing Moria, which is searchable top end for Gecko essentially. Because if it's in your trash, you can add it back. But doing Dofi, continually establishing bodies and able to control hand, filter it, things like that, I think are really good in this leader. That position it relatively decent in this meta. Same thing here with Reiju. I would almost say Reiju's tier 1.75 because it's feels like it's in between 1.5 and tier 2. Reiju has insane hand power with, of course, Baby Reiju, but then also aggro power with the Ichiji. And then, of course, that minus on Ichiji as well, which gives you really good into Eustace from an 8k to a 6k. Really just goes a long way, and then establishing those threats early and just applying pressure can be really good while also just regenerating value once you lose it. Red Green Odin, I'll go tier 2, but I think he's the bottom end of tier 2 here. Of course, getting that buff from ST21 as well with a Swing Luffy attach one allows you to play into your curve while also becoming a 6k leader swinging a lot of 7s because he gets the buff. Hannibal, table 500. I'm sorry, he's a 500 boy. Kyros, also table 500. Kyros has a lot of potential. Again, I really like that yellow-black color combination, and I like the leader ability. The only struggle is there's no meaningful minus or really value generation cards in it outside of Gecko, which is now going to be banned. Monkey D. Dragon, I'll go tier 3. I think Dragon just really doesn't do enough. And it's funny, but he gets we get the new Luffy, which, again, goes a very long way. I just don't love, Dragon, the Dawn efficiency is insane in terms of swinging. But outside of that, he doesn't have anything that really, does anything. Body, I'll put Body at tier 1. I think Bonnie is really good right now, and I think Bonnie is well positioned in the meta as well. With just all the cards that Green has and the addition of Tashigi and then the weakening of Lucci. I hear Lucci is still there and still really good into Bonnie, so it'll be quite interesting to see how Bonnie's going to play out. And of course, we have Boa. I'm going to put Boa at 1.5. And I think she rightfully deserves that. Boa continually bounces cards while also, once bouncing, generates value for herself, which goes a very long way. Because essentially, like, all these large drops that you play, plus the addition of Kyros into the set, the 7/9 body hits like a brick train. And I think Boa is incredibly well positioned going into this set because she has a lot of bounce cards, including like the 10-drop Kaido, which bounces an 8. And pretty much any top end falls within that, except for like 10 drops. Slow beam. I think he's like tier 2, tier 3 at this point. His best matchup was arguably Doflamingo because he can freeze the leader and they can't ever use their leader ability again, which is half of their value. And I don't, Shanks being super prevalent into the format, Shanks is really, really, really good into, because he just does what Foxy wants to do, but better. Lucci, I'm going to put Lucci at 1.5 because I still think Lucci is really good. It's just, Ice Age is a huge thing for answering top end, and now answering top end becomes a lot more expensive and a lot harder to do. But you also get room from cards like Helmeppo or Suru that you were playing previously that you no longer need to for the Gecko Revival. Vegapunk, I'm going to go table 500. Would love for somebody to prove me wrong there. Boku, a Doctor, 2020 Chopper. I'm putting him at table 500 as well. Now, this is untested. We're talking about Marco, but I'm going to put Marco at 1.5 just because it wouldn't surprise me if somebody did really well with him because I think he's super well positioned, but if you play a bad matchup, it's a bad matchup. And it's unfortunate, but like Blackbeard, I think Blackbeard's pretty bad. You can kind of do really well with things like Gum Red Rock, because then they play their 10-drop, do nothing. As long as you can keep their board clear, you're in a really good spot overall. But they turn a lot of your cards in your deck into bricks, which is why Blackbeard is a pretty poor matchup. And then Zoro, any true red deck just runs through this, so... those are really problematic, but outside of that, with Lucci kind of cooling down and not having Ice Age, I think it's really hard for Lucci to win. Carrot, I'm going to go put Carrot at 2. I think Carrot still has a lot of potential. I think anything that falls in tier 2 has a potential to top, but requires a little bit of luck and a lot of dedication. King, I'll put King at tier 3. I love his abilities. I think it's just barely not good enough. Pudding, we have the new Kaido Linlin build that you can play in the yellow-purple space. Shout out Real Josh. So I'm going to put her at tier 2 just because she can play the Kaido Linlin combo. Calgara, I'll put Calgara at 3. I think he's just going to fold to a true red aggro deck. And then also things that delay the game like Bonnie. I just don't think he's really well positioned. I could be wrong. I would love to see it, but I know I talked to Orange about it at Bandai Card Fest. Now Shanks is tier 1. I think Shanks is incredibly well positioned, especially with Doflamingo just a little bit weaker and with Lucci a little bit weaker as well. Did I accidentally put the Lucci somewhere? Where is Lucci? What set was Lucci in? Because Lucci should be in here now that I'm... Oh, here he is. I already did Lucci. 1.5. Okay. I was like, yeah, I think Lucci's like 1.5. So I think he's still absolutely really good. But it's a lot harder to answer the top end of something like Shanks when you don't have Ice Ages to continually use, which was like a big win con for my opponents. And once you establish those big threats and they don't have just the minus to like hard cast to continually do that, you're in a really good spot. Lim also, super underrated leader. I played against Noose as Lim. This was OP11 format, but yeah, I mean, just establishing that this goes super wide, plays Zoro, and really just generates value with the characters that are played. I think his deck is pretty good. But I was playing blue-purple, and his build was specifically meant to beat blue-purple. So, take that for what it's worth, but I think Lim has a lot of potential as one of those underrated leaders. I'll put Buggy at 2. I think Buggy's best matchup with promo was Dofi. Outside of that, nothing really phenomenal. Can spit out big bodies and can kind of thrash Blackbeard if they use their ability, and you just get to play Buggy for free. But outside of that, I think it's a little underwhelming. But there is a structure deck coming, which I think will give a lot of support. Same here with this purple-black Luffy. I think this card just completely underperformed in our meta while seeing some success in Japan. This leader, I think, maybe saw one top event. But, yeah, not much of a showing there. Nico Robin, I'll also put it tier 2 because the Kaido Linlin deck. Blackbeard, I'm going to put Blackbeard at tier 1. Blackbeard is still really good. With aggro Shanks, it makes the Blackbeard matchup a lot easier, but Blackbeard still has a decent matchup spread, even though losing two main things being Lucci and Dofi, even the BY. I think it really puts him in a good position. Smoker, I'm going to put Smoker tier 1, maybe 1.5. I would argue almost like a 1.25 because Smoker, of course, has Eustace, which is the best card. But like this deck as a whole, I feel just folds to True Red. And I think because Doflamingo isn't in the picture, we're going to see a bit more True Red cards. And then Caesar Clown, I'm going to go tier 3. I wish this card was good. I wish there was more synergy. There was more cards released with him. They did not release a lot of cards to support him. And then, of course, we have Sugar. Sugar probably tier 3 as well. Red-purple. The only red-purple Luffy that did really well was the structure deck Luffy. So, pretty unfortunate there. And then we've got GY Law. I think GY Law is like 1.5. I think this leader is really powerful in its ability, and once it starts comboing, it combos really well in the same way that Red Green Law does. And both of these leaders are just really, really strong overall and just spamming bodies. Usopp also put at 1.5. He loses his best matchups. I think he's like closer to 2. But, because he just kind of gets folded by Shanks, especially like an aggro Shanks. So it'll be really interesting to see what VA is going to bring. Because there's one more regional this weekend, I believe. And it is pre-ban. And then once that comes into effect, Virginia Beach will be the first ban list one. So it'll be really interesting to see what the top showings are. I'm also going to put this Eustace at 1.5. I think he's pretty good overall. The P Kid. I'm a big fan of this leader, actually, like, because the effect you flip it and you get a blocker for free, but you can also turn it into your burn cards with Hawkins and make them able to burn your opponent, and then, of course, the Kaido Linlin combo. But I think it's really interesting, and then the 8-drop kid is actually really good as well. Uda, table 500, this table 500, table 500, Law, table 500. You cannot play this. Sanji, I'll give Sanji a 3. I think Sanji's overall, like, the aggro's cool, but you're only establishing one threat a turn. I think that's slightly problematic. Table 500, Luffy leader. He just got power crept. Eustace Kid, only good in pre-release. We'll skip most of these. We'll go into this. I think this Luffy's still like 1.5. I think he's actually a slightly better position because there'll be more Shanks and he gets a little bit more aggression. Only problem he has is counter. This Eustace, I'll give him a tier. I'll give him tier 2 because this Eustace to some degree has seen success in OP11. I don't remember if he saw some in OP10, but he did see some in OP11. Same thing here with this blue-green Zoro Sanji. If a body sticks and this card pops off, it creates an insane amount of value and puts a lot of pressure on you as a player. And Uda as well. I think Uda is relatively decent. Tier 2, being able to draw a lot, maybe a little bit less blue to hit you with that pudding. And then, of course, Luffy's gone. BY Ace, tier 3. Sabo, though. I think Sabo is tier 2. I think there's a lot of potential. Again, getting that ST21 Luffy puts in a lot of work here. And then we also have the Bait Luffy. Bait Luffy getting a little bit of support in EBO1. I think that this leader has a lot of potential. So it'd be really interesting to see, I think, because 6K leader is always really good, as we see with green-purple. And then I'll also put this at tier 2 as well. The new ST21 Luffy leader. I think he overall has a really decent effect. Really cool effect too that allows you to just continually use Dawn and the new cards that support him in that. Like you swing with your Luffy, then you get to attach one, and then you can attach 2 more somewhere else, allowing you to do a lot of aggro. So I think this leader has a lot of hope, but This is the tier list. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot, and I will see you all in the next one.